feels like there have been a lot of really interesting and different Star Trek books published lately, and I'm having a lot of fun kind of looking through them and getting to know them all. I'm Dan Gunther. This is Positively Trek. With me, as he is every week, is Bruce Gibson. Bruce, how are you doing today?
I'm doing especially well today. I've had a few drinks, a few cocktails. Not really. Right now we're recording at 10 o'clock a.m. my time. So no, I haven't been drinking, but I'm pretending I have.
Excellent. Yeah, and one of the books we're going to be talking about today with the author of said book would be really helpful in that manner, of course, for sure. So joining us for today's episode is Glenn Dakin, author of 3 new Star Trek books that have come out in recent months. He's also a cartoonist and a writer, and we're really happy to have him on Positively Trek. So Glenn, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to be on the show.
Excellent. Really happy to have you here. So yeah, we have these 3 books. We do have a couple of news stories that we're going to talk about at the top of the show here as well before we get into that. So first of all, really quickly, we had Anson Mount, who of course played Captain Christopher Pike in season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, and will be playing him in the upcoming Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And he's joined an interesting scientific effort to make first contact with aliens, METI, kind of a successor to the SETI program. And METI stands for Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So Bruce, had you heard this announcement?
I did. I heard something earlier than that, too, where he said he had an announcement coming out the next day. Mm-hmm. And, of course, my mind, and I know some other people's minds, went to, it's got to be something about Strange New Worlds. We're getting an announcement. And no, this is about Anson Mount actually looking for aliens. I assume that he's enjoyed being on Star Trek and working with fake aliens, that he now wants to find the real ones.
And I mean, you're not wrong. It was kind of about Strange New Worlds, just not the Strange New Worlds that we were thinking. So yeah, interesting development here. NASA and different groups like that, and METI and SETI have always used the voices of people in pop culture, and Star Trek has a long history of that as well, of being kind of voices for that scientific community. So really interesting that he's getting involved in this.
Yeah, I want to know, can we get involved? I really don't know much about this. Is this something that we can participate in or be involved or follow or something? Because, I mean, I want to be on board with finding aliens. Don't you?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you can definitely follow. I'll have a link to the story in the show notes. You can follow Anson Mount, his tweet there, as well as the METI program. I'll have a link to their Twitter. It's really interesting. I've just started kind of reading up on it. I'm familiar with SETI, but I haven't learned a lot about this METI group. So pretty cool.
Aren't we kind of scared? Glenn, are you afraid that we might get invaded by doing this?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of like, I suppose with SETI was kind of like listening out for aliens, and this new one is messaging them. So what happens if one group messages them and then the other group gets the reply? Will they share it, or will they say, no, it's our reply? You know, it's kind of strange. It's like one group is messaging and one group is receiving.
I think the real danger is if they get their wires crossed and start talking to each other and really think like, oh my goodness.
They probably prank each other a lot with messages, I'm guessing. You can probably bounce messages off the atmosphere in some clever way if you're a scientist, and prank the other team into thinking they've got the Klingons coming.
I almost feel like this is a generational thing, that SETI was set up by an older generation of listening, and now we have millennials in there saying, no, we have to be texting with them. We have to be messaging.
About us. It's all about us. In the past, yeah, we were ready to listen. You know, we wanted to discover what's out there. Now it's all about us. We're going to tell them, you know, who we are and what's getting us down, and how we can make the universe a better place.
Absolutely. And yeah, I foresee all kinds of things like misinterpreting emojis, and yeah, this could get really bad.
Alien emojis.
What does this eggplant emoji mean? I don't get this. All right. Anyway.
But you know, we can be messaging Star Trek stuff too to these aliens. Actually, we can make the aliens think our planet is Star Trek, that the planet does have starships and such, and they may be a little more hesitant to attack us if they know that we have the Enterprise in orbit.
If we've got a Federation behind us, yeah, they're going to be a lot less likely to come over here with their slimy tentacles and, start creeping around.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's one. They might see us as more of a threat, though. I don't know. That's a dangerous.
Depends which episodes they're watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we should send them Doctor Who episodes too.
If we send them Doctor Who, they'll be like, this planet gets invaded on a weekly basis, so we might as well have a go.
Right.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, there's also some sad news this week that we've had to report on, and I just learned this this morning. So Herb Solow, one of the producers who sold Star Trek to NBC, has recently passed away at the age of 89. And, I've been a Star Trek fan since I was a little kid and watching TOS reruns on CBC television here in Canada. And, you see these names pop up across the screen every episode, and you don't necessarily know who they are or what relation they have to Star Trek. And of course, Herb Solow was one that you see almost every week in episodes of Star Trek. And, really reading about his history with Star Trek and what he did. So, he was involved in selling the idea from Desilu Studios to NBC after it had been rejected by CBS, and working with Lucille Ball on getting this going and all that kind of stuff. It really makes you appreciate how many people were involved in the creation of Star Trek and the importance of them. So definitely very sad news today.
Yeah, I'm very much into television history, and I work in the industry, and, his connection to Star Trek is interesting to me. But the fact that he did work with Lucille Ball, was brought in by her to come into Desilu and help things out, and work with other series like Mission Impossible and Mannix to get those distribution deals done. And in addition to that, I see here that he worked at MGM for quite a while and handled the distribution of their content at MGM. And he was also VP of Worldwide Motion Picture and Television Production, and head of their Culver City studios. So yeah, quite impressive. Yeah, he also wrote books, Inside Star Trek: The Real Story and the Star Trek Sketchbook. So yeah, he's had a lot of fingerprints on Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Inside Star Trek was definitely a very influential book over the years, and I definitely remember at least paging through that a little bit as a kid. So yeah, definitely a huge impact on Star Trek and the world of television and film. Besides that as well, even a brief stint at Hanna-Barbera, which is interesting. There's so many different facets of this career. Is really cool.
Yeah, I see at Hanna-Barbera he was producing the live action series that they did called Man from Atlantis, which is very odd because most of what they did was animated.
Yeah, I didn't even know that existed. So that's really fascinating. Well, yeah. So speaking of Star Trek and Star Trek books, of course, as I said, Glenn Dakin, you're the author of 3 recent Star Trek books, which we will definitely get into here. I also want to talk a little bit about how you initially became a Star Trek fan and that sort of thing. So when did you first become a fan of Star Trek?
Well, it's a kind of funny thing in a way, because I don't know whether I have to blame this on my parents, but when I was growing up, I missed the series completely the first time around. And I had 2 pals. I changed schools at the age of about 10, 11. I had 2 pals who kept telling me about this series that had been set in space, and they were telling me about beaming up and phasers and, the Vulcan nerve pinch and everything. I kind of thought they were winding me up at first. I thought, how could I possibly have missed this amazing show? Everything I heard about it sounded incredible. And so I only caught it up with it on the repeats, and just instantly kind of, was transfixed. It really created its own, not just its own imaginative world, but it had its totally own way of, its own storytelling. The show has got an amazing impetus. It's so well, the storytelling is so sharp. It moves forward all the time. There's this sense of approaching destruction in a lot of the episodes. And, it's just under humor, and the characterization was so vivid. And, so I guess I started to see the first lot of repeats in the early 70s when I was a teenager.
Excellent. Yeah. It's interesting because actually just having read about Herb Solow's influence on Star Trek and some of those early ideas, some of those things about the early Star Trek has kind of flashed me back to that, and then I kind of forgot. So one of the things he talked about was how initially the idea was to tell it in flashbacks, and if you watch the first few episodes, the captain's logs and stuff are in past tense. So I don't know, that just, yeah, the idea of that as a storytelling device is really interesting and can fuel the imagination of young people for sure. And I'm sure you found that as you were watching as a kid, kind of fueling your ideas for your career as a cartoonist and a writer. So tell us a little bit about that career. And, you're known for a number of things, the Candleman novels, for example, an autobiographical comic strip, Abe. Tell us a little bit about that career and kind of how it led you into writing about Star Trek now.
Well, I kind of started out as a cartoonist, really, and I used to draw and write my own comics. I've got a slightly scruffy, impressionistic comic style that's well suited to autobiographical comics, like independent comics. Kind of more of a New York style, simple rendered down cartoons. So I'm not a great comic book artist. I couldn't go away and draw Spider-Man. Nobody would buy the comic. But I found as I was drawing these comics, I was developing a kind of writing style and people liked my ideas. So suddenly I found in the kind of comic scene in the UK, we used to have these kind of monthly gatherings in London, in Westminster, and famous people in comics like Alan Moore, would turn up there, and you could have a drink with him at the bar and, try and sell him your own little comic. And it was quite a small world, and you got to meet editors and things. And suddenly I found people were asking me to write stuff. So quite quickly I was writing for Marvel UK. We had our own branch. Stan Lee himself set up Marvel UK. And we had our own branch of Marvel Comics where I was starting to write comics for that. And I found I love writing. I found it a lot easier than drawing. It's much easier to say, 20 horsemen came over the hill than it is to draw it. So I got completely wrapped up in writing, really. And people started to, I was invited to write all kinds of things. One of the things I was invited to write for was a Star Trek magazine when Next Generation came along. And I wrote a couple of articles for a Marvel Star Trek magazine. And I started to write for the TV and stuff, animation I've written in the UK. Often people who had read my comics, like editors, it was kind of like this great diaspora. People started off in comics, but some of them ended up in TV, some of them ended up in radio, some of them ended up, in publishing. Suddenly I was getting people saying, would you like to write for kids' TV? Would you like to write comedy? And it's led me down many paths. And I've been working with this company, Eagle Moss, who we've got this publishing wing, Hero Collector, which does all kind of fantasy. We do Star Trek spaceships and model starships and stuff. And recently we've kind of branched out into publishing, and I've been writing a load of stuff about Marvel Comics, Batman, and things like this for Hero Collector. And they invited me to start working on some Star Trek ideas, and this is the line of books we've started to come up with.
Excellent. Well, yeah. So the first one that I want to talk about, really interesting, and I actually picked this up a while ago. Came out back in September. Nerd Search: Quibbles with Tribbles. Tell us a little bit about the concept behind this book.
Well, my project manager, Stella Bradley, had an idea that we could do something which was like next level Where's Wally? Well, we call it Where's Wally in the UK. I think you call it Where's Waldo, where instead of trying to find like one thing in a picture, you would have a familiar scene with loads of little tiny mistakes. So we thought this would appeal to the Star Trek fan, because, you get these, fans of a TV show absolutely love to look for the mistakes and to pick it apart, and to say, well, why did Spock do that? Why, if he can do the mind meld, why didn't he do the mind meld in this episode? And why didn't they, or if they can beam down to the planet, why don't they all just beam back, blah, 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 So people love to pull apart the storylines. They love to criticize every detail. Why would this work? Why would that happen? So we've created these we've taken 8 classic episodes and we've got a great artist, John Ross, to create these lovingly illustrated scenes into which we've put the most annoying mistakes. So like, Spock will be wearing the shirt that he was wearing in the pilot episode when he went down to the Talos 4 instead of the shirt he should have been wearing. We've got Tribbles that are the wrong size. We've got people behaving out of character, like a Vulcan eating a chicken leg, because of course they're vegetarian. It's just a crazy mishmash of deliberate errors that are designed to drive any true fan of Star Trek nuts. So it's kind of a bit of fun, really. You've got to, and there's something from every single story of the original series hidden across the 8 spreads. And this is the really big challenge for the true fan. Can you spot the intrusive element in the pictures? Like, for example, we've got characters walking by in the background, or gadgets, or even a symbol from like the Terran Empire symbol on the wall of the Enterprise. We've got loads of sneaky little things that shouldn't be there. We've got the boxing poster from the background of the City on the Edge of Forever. We were saying, what element from the City on the Edge of Forever could we hide in one of these pictures? Because it's such a well-known story. And Ben Robinson, who's like a Star Trek expert on Hero Collector, he had this great idea that there was a boxing poster on the wall that people might, like one Star Trek fan in 1,000 would remember this poster. So I've given it away now, but not everyone is going to hear this. So we've got loads of tiny, sneaky little details in there, which the fans should have fun uncovering.
I'm so excited about this book. I know it came out a couple months ago, but I asked for it for Christmas. I know my wife has it somewhere here in the house, and I'm just dying to read this now. I mean, I was before, but now just talking to you, I'm like, I really want to look through it. I'm just curious, though. I might miss something. Is there something in the back that gives you all the giveaways of what's wrong?
Yeah, we decided that, explaining the answers is almost as much fun as setting the puzzle. So in the back section, all of the pictures are broken down so that you can see where the errors are and where the hidden things are. We in a kind of a simple grid system, and there's quite a chatty answer section where we kind of talk about why this is wrong. And we also have these things called super quibbles, which are things that could have been in the show but weren't. So you get extra points for the super quibbles. Like we've got one which is quite funny, is we've got Mr. Spock holding a fanged teddy bear, because in Journey to Babylon, you've got his Spock's mum tells Kirk and McCoy that he used to have a teddy bear when he was little. And later on, Spock says, with 6-inch fangs, Doctor, or something like that. And so in the scene, Spock is actually holding a teddy bear with fangs. And the super quibble is you have to know that teddy bear shouldn't be there. It was only referenced in conversation. It wasn't seen in the show. So there are really, some of these are really subtle things, but they're kind of fun to discuss. It's a bit of a celebration of the show, really. It doesn't really matter if you don't get 1701 points, which is the top score. If you don't get that amount of points, you can enjoy along the way arguing about some of the the little annoying little mistakes, and whether we've made mistakes ourselves.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, looking through it, it really does feel like a love letter to Star Trek. I mean, it's definitely apparent in the pages here. And you mentioned, Ben Robinson coming up with some of these ideas. Was this kind of more of a collaborative effort with a group, like a think tank of Star Trek fans?
It was, I kind of was asked to do the book, but because I go into the office at Hero Collector 2 days a week, well, I did until the current situation. So we kind of often discuss it over a coffee or something. And also I just think if Ben doesn't get something, then nobody will. So I kind of say, do you think it's fair to have this spear in the background? Are they going to know this? And Ben's like, well, yeah, they should get that. Only nobody would get that. So it's kind of a good. He's kind of a good judge of what the Star Trek super nerd would know, or whether we'd gone a bit too far. And certainly he chucked in loads of ideas. Yeah.
I also see that you did a Ghostbusters book similar to this.
Yep, we started off. We were looking at major, much loved fantasy series. And so we started off with Star Trek, and then we did Ghostbusters. And weirdly, we've also got a Beatles Yellow Submarine one coming along.
Oh, wow.
Oh, very cool.
And I've also been we're working with Bill Morrison on that, who is a great, Simpsons contributor. He's done a great job on Yellow Submarine. And I've been doing a massive Next Gen rewatch across the lockdown. I've got up to about episode 16 of season 7 now. So we're preparing to do a Next Gen nerd search as well.
Excellent. Well, that actually leads me kind of into my next question, which was, can we expect a follow-up? So that's awesome news. That's really cool.
Well, I hope so. After having sat through God knows how many episodes of Picard and Co. across the lockdown, it's been a long, long journey.
Oh, I feel so sorry that you've had to do all that work.
Well, I'm kind of a bit anal about this. It's like if I set out to watch something, I have to watch absolutely every bit. And there's one episode where Riker is having flashbacks and he was reliving moments of other episodes. And I was a little bit iffy about that. I thought, do I really have to watch all the, where they start to show you a scene from Encounter at Farpoint? You think, how long is this flashback going to be? I think it was the last episode of series 2.
Yeah, Shades of Grey. Yeah.
And I'm kind of watching this thinking, do I really got to rewatch all this? So that was the only one I was a little bit kind of like looking at my mail at the same time. That's not the greatest episode of Next Gen Shades.
No.
Yeah, that you're allowed to kind of zone out during that one for sure.
You would never get a season finale like that now. I mean, it has to be a massive event. You wouldn't just do a bunch of like, flashbacks and the.
Well, the next book that I want to talk about is one we've kind of mentioned briefly. So this one is Star Trek Cocktails, a Stellar Compendium. And this hit shelves earlier this month in November. So yeah, tell us a little bit about this one. I haven't had the chance to look at this one myself, unfortunately. Other than there's a pretty comprehensive preview of it up on Amazon, which is interesting to kind of go through. But yeah, tell us about how this book came about and kind of your goal with Star Trek Cocktails.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of Star Trek kind of more serious books and guides to spaceships, starships and things. We were looking for doing some fun stuff that would celebrate the show in an interesting way. We started discussing something like Star Trek party food, and we were brainstorming ideas, and we started looking at these cocktails. We were saying, well, actually, the cocktails are kind of more fun than everything else here, really. And it just started to take off. I started to look around at the episodes, and there is a great tradition of drinking in Star Trek. It was, when Gene Roddenberry imagined his positive future, he actually said that there would be no smoking in the future, which was kind of unusual for a 60s adventure TV show. No, there's no smoking in it. But he did think that in the future people would drink, and usually with the Irish or Scottish characters, there was some kind of connection with drink. And with alien races, formal occasions, you had your Saurian brandy, you had Dr. McCoy and his mint julep. You had Chekhov saying that whiskey was invented by a little old lady from Leningrad in The Trouble with Tribbles. And there was a nice line, especially when you get to Next Gen, you've got 10 Forward. Suddenly you've got a bar on the Enterprise and Guinan. You've got drinking, intimate moments. There's loads of humor about drinking on there with Data. And it becomes part of the fabric of the show. It adds a little bit of fantasy. So we had great fun finding the most interesting already existing Star Trek drinks, like the Warp Core Breach, which is a great cocktail served in Quark's bar in Deep Space Nine. And then we kind of thought, well, wouldn't it be great to invent something completely new for this book? So when people buy the book, they can get some cocktails that simply never existed before. So we invented stuff like the Mind Meld. We've got the Ice Planet, which is Rurapente, based on the Klingon prison world. We've got stuff like Borg Queen and Klingon Bird of Prey. We've invented lots of fun cocktail concepts where the type of drink reinforces the concept. So we had great fun putting those together.
Yeah, going through, like, especially the first part of the book, it starts with this kind of summary of drinking in Star Trek. And I think, you know, this imbibing has long been a part of the Star Trek experience. And I think more so than a lot of us stop to think and realize. So that was kind of fun to kind of realize how much of a role that plays. And I do want to know, so are you a cocktail expert as well? Or was there someone along the way to kind of help out with that?
We had two mixologists working with us. We've got a very talented French mixologist called Simon, and he's properly credited in the Simon. He's properly credited in the book. We were talking with him on Zoom because we had the concept for the drinks. And of course, I had plenty of ideas, and a lot of the cocktails are based on existing cocktails like Kirk's Old Fashioned and McCoy's Mint Julep. Those are cocktails which already exist that we gave a little bit of a twist to. But although I had my own ideas of how we could characterize these drinks, for example, Mr. Spock's Live Long and Prosper, I had a definite idea about what that drink should be. Every idea had to be run past proper cocktail mixologists. We had one in the UK, one in France. We had communication on Zoom. We had session in a bar, putting some of them together. So yeah, it was a team effort on the actual cocktails, because I don't come from a that kind of background. And although I have consumed a few cocktails in my life, I wouldn't yet claim to be an expert. I'm still going to have to put in a lot of hard work.
Well, Glenn, with your name on this book, I would assume that you have sampled at least every one of these at least once.
I'm working on it. I'm working my way. When you hit the Ferengi Warbanger, sometimes it's hard to go on after that.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I actually just purchased the ebook as we're talking, and I'm going through it right now. And that was the one I just stopped on, was the Ferengi Wallbanger. That one scares me a little with the vodka and the orange juice and such.
It's the peach schnapps. That's what I'm a bit of a sucker for peach schnapps, and I've got it in a couple of the drinks there. And when I was younger, I used to tour around the Greek islands when I was writing comics and stuff. And there used to be a bar on the island of Naxos where I used to go regularly. And for some reason, if you go there out of season, the drinks are very cheap if they want to keep you in the bar, or they just get bored of the bar being empty. And they used to ply me with heaps of peach schnapps and their own raki. And it certainly was a mind expanding experience. So I wanted there to be a couple of items in the book which had that quality.
I see there's very much some romantic drinks in here that I might be able to sneak one of these into my wife at some point. One has a little heart on the top.
That's the Cupid. Yes, we had to get Q in there. And there's a famous drink in the Savoy cocktail book, which is a classic cocktail book, called Cupid. There are lots of different versions of the Cupid, but we thought if it was Q's version, that would be fun. So we've got that in there. And we've also got the Vulcan Mind Meld, which is a romantic drink. That's got like champagne, cherry liqueur in it. And it's also decorated with edible flowers. So that's kind of a nice date kind of occasion drink.
Dan, have you ever had a drink with the edible flowers before?
I don't think that I have. That sounds really fascinating.
I've done it once in Las Vegas. It wasn't at a Star Trek convention. I was at a business convention. It was the Consumer Electronics Show. But yeah, it's a flower and you eat it. It's like does something to your palate while you're having the drink. So now I'm curious about trying this in an alien version. Yeah, maybe I should message some aliens to join us for drinks here on Earth.
Get Anson Mount to order in some alien flowers, so we can all have a nice mind meld together. New Year's Eve or something when we get first contact.
Be great. Is there a favorite drink or two that you think like everybody, if you're going to try one or two drinks from this book, you've got to have this one or something like that?
I'm kind of fond of the Mr. Spock themed drinks, which they're not too. I mean, like the Warp Core Breach is an absolute classic. It had like 4 kinds of rum, 4 kinds of fruit juice, and it is served in a goldfish bowl. That's more of a party drink. That's one when all this COVID is behind us. That's one to get together with your friends and share maybe That is an epic one, and I think people will really enjoy that. But I like the Vulcan ones. We've got the Live Long and Prosper, which is it's kind of refreshing rather than a drink that's gonna have you singing the blues kind of thing. It's got tequila, sparkling water, fruit juice, Trixie and bubble juice, which I think you'll find is a lovely ingredient. And there's another one, Spock's Slipper, which is made with midori, which is melon liqueur, Japanese melon liqueur, and that is quite sweet. But if you counteract it with some lime juice or bitters, that's also got tequila. Those ones I think are my favourites. The Vulcan end of the drinks I rather like, because we've made them a little bit more, I can't exactly say healthy, but they're a bit more on the social drinking side rather than the getting hammered side. Like we've got the White Romulan and the Klingon Bird of Prey, which are warriors' drinks. We've got a Worf's Smooth Move, which is a cocktail with prune juice in it, because
of course, yeah.
Worf decided that prune juice was a warrior's drink, so we had to have prune juice themed cocktail. So that's one for the Klingon, for your Klingon side.
I mean, I'm not a big person to mix my own drinks. I prefer to just go somewhere and have someone do that for me. I might try to do some of these, but what I do enjoy seeing through this book, as I mentioned, I just bought it. I like it because it's not just, oh, here are recipes. It's fun to read just these little summaries to each of the drinks and the names and the pictures and illustrations that are in the book. And for example, you've got all series covered. I'm looking at Tilly's Ping Pong Beer and how she would approve of your sets of adventure. It may improve your game of beer pong.
Well, have you seen the episode of Discovery where Tilly is playing beer pong, and you have to catch the ping pong ball in your drink? It's quite a memorable scene, so we wanted to have that in there from Discovery, and it's kind of a Mexican type of spice beer that it's based on. So it's got quite a kick to it, but I think that would be a really fun one that people would enjoy. And we kind of wanted to get Tilly in there. We wanted this to span every aspect of Star Trek. So we've even got some references. I mean, Picard had only just been on when we were doing the book. That was the newest thing. So we've got the Flaming Serena in there, and we've got the Earl Grey Martini, which I've been told is a bit of a hit. A couple of people on Twitter have been saying it's quite hard to get a successful Earl Grey cocktail, but apparently that one's been going down well.
See, I think what I honestly will do is take this book into a bar and show it to a bartender. Can you make this one? Like, I want to challenge them to make these for me.
You should. I just want to say something about the artist. There's a guy called Adrian Salmon who's done a lot of Doctor Who work here in the UK. He's got a lovely stylized quality of art. And it just reminded me of the kind of art you sometimes get in cocktail books. And it's got a slightly retro feel, like retro future, if you know what I mean. Star Trek has that kind of feel sometimes. And he's done some beautiful illustrations with slightly surreal illustrations. Like we've got one cocktail called the Lime Directive. And his illustration is of the Enterprise orbiting a giant lime, a giant slice of lime. And there's a surreal touch to the illustrations, very vivid. But we've tried to also, we haven't just put in cocktail recipes. We've put in some of the most famous drinking scenes and illustrated them. So there's like 7 key drinking scenes from the history of Star Trek that intersperse the book. So it's not just about the cocktails. It's a celebration of the role of drink in Star Trek and just the fun that we've all had watching it.
Oh, very cool. It feels like one I'm going to have to pick up because I think this could be a lot of fun for sure. So I'm adding it to my Christmas list now.
Boldly go and explore the universe of drinking.
Definitely.
In moderation.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
No drinking and driving or flying.
Well, moving on to another book that came out in early November, Mr. Spock's Little Book of Mindfulness, How to Survive in an Illogical World. And I feel like with that title, this is one that's very fitting to the world we're living in now. And you mentioned earlier your particular drawing style, and I feel like what I've seen of this book kind of illustrates kind of that style here. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of this particular book.
Well, the idea for this book actually came from Ben Robinson. He and I often have coffee together when we're at work, and I've been boring him rigid for the last few years with the tales of myself doing yoga. And I am kind of inclined towards the philosophical. My comic strip, Abe, which came out as a graphic novel with Top Shelf, was quite a lot of philosophical ramblings in there. And I've always loved these books that try to give you advice about how to live your life, but in a kind of humorous way. You know, they've always amused me, how to win friends and influence people, this kind of thing. I've always found those books very funny. And I've always loved books of philosophy. When I was quite young, I was reading books of Tao wisdom and thoughtful little commentaries on life. So we wanted to do one with the wisdom of Mr. Spock, and not just Mr. Spock, but of Vulcans. And we thought this would be great for like you say, for the mirror universe we've been living in the last couple of years. Everything's got a bit strange, and Spock would definitely be raising an eyebrow at the world that we live in today. So it's about how to survive modern life. It's about relationships, family, work, seen through the eyes of Spock and Vulcan wisdom.
Excellent. Yeah. And like I said, it feels like something that is kind of needed this way. And I really like the perspective. So a logical being who must contend with a world that's highly illogical. So I have to ask, do you identify with Mr. Spock in this way, kind of making your way through this world these days?
I think I do. And I think a lot of people who like science fiction are the same. You know, I think people who love science fiction, Doctor Who, Star Trek, you know, it's perfectly obvious to us that life, we should try to understand people who aren't like us. You know, it's this great theme in science fiction in the 50s. Why do we always destroy that which we don't understand, the day the earth stood still? And it's perfectly obvious if you read science fiction that you need to see beyond the obvious to survive. And I think that message is very clear to a lot of nerds. You know, we can see how being narrow-minded, jumping to conclusions, being impatient really doesn't get you anywhere. And so it's kind of like a fun kind of look at enlightenment. How can we calm down a bit and enjoy life on a daily basis instead of rushing around crazily full of ambition? Mr. Spock says, you know, you may find that having is not so pleasing a thing as wanting. You know, it may be illogical, but it's true. And I think that's something that that's something that people can learn a lot from. There are some of Mr. Spock's quotes are very memorable and amusing, like in Star Trek 4. Nothing unreal exists. We've got a lovely, we got a T-shirt with that on. I think that will make people stop when they see that in the street. And we've got another one. Computers make efficient servants, but I would not like to serve under one. And we've got a lot of Spock's quotes like that, which apply to modern life. And I've produced a whole bunch of cartoons to kind of bring them home to people. We sort of analyze, like in the modern world, people are obsessed with, people can't do like one thing at a time anymore. We've all become, we just can't focus with like checking our mail while we're watching our favorite TV show. We're ashamed of unitasking. I think it was IBM computers in the 60s that invented the word multitasking, and they invented the word multitasking to refer to machines, not human beings. But ever since we heard that word multitasking, we've been frightened to do one thing at a time. Whereas a Vulcan, Mr. Spock, he's got this focus. You know, he is quite capable of just doing one task. If he was watching television, he would know who the characters were. He would know what their names were. He wouldn't be like us, talking about Game of Thrones and saying, you know, that guy with the blonde hair who killed that guy last week, and the girl who used to be in, you know, this other show, you know, because we can't remember the names of the characters. We kind of look away. We're on the phone. We're texting. We're unable to focus on one thing like we used to be. And we can learn from Mr. Spock, who certainly wouldn't be, posting pictures of kittens on Instagram when he was supposed to be saving the ship from destruction, because Vulcans don't go in for that kind of petty distractions. And Mr. Spock wouldn't post pictures of himself on holiday on Instagram. There would be no logic in what would be the logic in sharing photographs of your holiday with complete strangers. And also Vulcans don't need to go on holiday because they can actually put themselves into a kind of refreshing coma, where if they switch off their body functions for a couple of hours, it gives them the same relaxation effect as having a 2-week holiday on a Greek island. And
man, I gotta say, I could go for a refreshing coma sometimes these days.
If you go into a refreshing coma, you're much less likely to be stumbling around drunk in the middle of the night on a Greek island, unable to find your hotel, and probably spotted by your ex-girlfriend in a pool of tears outside a nightclub, saying, "Why doesn't anybody love me?" That kind of thing. So the Vulcan way is much more sensible.
Yeah, to the point where you're talking about posting pictures on, as you say in this book, Spacebook or whatever they have in the 23rd century. I like how you say a Vulcan will take a selfie only if he wants to check on the progress of a blackhead and there's no mirror available. It sounds only logical.
Yeah, it's a logical view of the world that I think we need to get back to. I think we're all doing too many things at once. And we need, I love the episode of the original series, Devil in the Dark, where everybody else wants to destroy this creature, the Horta, which is running around in the dark, melting people. And only Spock sees it as a valid life form. He doesn't see it as a monster, but nobody else has got the vision or the curiosity to see past the threat into something that could be a wonderful ally. And I think that's a message really for the whole of the planet. We're out there cutting down rainforests and leading creatures to the brink of extinction. And these rainforests could contain herbs that may cure our illnesses. We have to see beyond the obvious and have a slightly more Vulcan view. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations is the Vulcan philosophy, to love things for their variety rather than trying to make everything the same, which is kind of a kind of corporate branding approach to life, isn't it? So I think there's a lot to learn. The book isn't to be taken too seriously, though. There's a lot of fun in the cartoons and there's a lot of jokes in there. There's a whole jokey section at the back where we give some of the sources of our Vulcan philosophy. There is some great quotes from some famous people like Mark Twain and Winston Churchill that we've used in kind of Vulcan disguise, but we do credit them in the back of the book.
This feels like a book that I would want to read either as soon as I wake up in the morning, just to put me in a good mood for the day and think of in a more positive and kind of lighthearted way, or to read some of this right when I'm going to sleep, just to kind of end the day on a light note. It just seems like it's a really fun, light book to read and kind of laugh at, but also gather, like you're saying, make you think about, maybe we are taking things too seriously, or maybe I'm multitasking too much.
I think people are much too hard on themselves these days. We got to get back, to chilling out a bit and enjoying life. It's here for us to enjoy. And I think Mr. Spock has a lovely, curious attitude. There's one episode where they've been imprisoned in some strange force field, and while Kirk is trying to get out of it, Spock is just admiring the force field. He's impressed with the wonderful science behind it. And he's like stopping to smell the roses. He even finds pleasure in the trap that he's been put in because he admires the way it's being done. And he's got a lovely open-minded approach to living. Instead of trying to make the world how he wants it to be, he accepts it for what it is and is very curious about it, as he keeps saying, fascinating. To him, the universe is fascinating rather than disturbing.
I think definitely lessons we could all use, especially these days, like you said, with the kind of fast-paced and being pulled in 1,000 different directions. I think taking a few minutes and getting some of that wisdom from this book might be a better way to spend our time, for sure.
Well, Dan, please don't read this and say, hey, maybe we should cut back on the number of episodes that we're doing.
You saw where I was going with that. Eh?
Oh, no.
Just kidding. Awesome. Well, yeah. So all three of these books are available now, and definitely, if you haven't picked them up yet, maybe put them on your Christmas list. Give some hints to some loved ones that maybe one or two of these under your tree would not be unwelcome for sure. Because, I think these are really fascinating, and like I've had so much fun flipping through Nerd Search and searching for stuff and. Some of the really challenging parts, I think, are just a ton of fun and just perfect for the uber Star Trek fans out there. So, and like I said, the cocktail book, I definitely want to pick that up now. So that's very cool.
That's good. We had a lot of fun with the quotes in there. We went through all the all the episodes and things, and we've done some kind of slightly cheeky, funny. Elusive kind of quotes to go with the cocktails, which I think people will enjoy as well. Like the grog of Khan, which is best served cold.
Yes, I did notice that when I was looking through the preview. I love that. So is there anything else that you're working on right now that might be coming in the future that you can share with us that our listeners might be interested in?
I can't really give away. I've just started up work on some new projects, but not really allowed to give it away. But like I say, we are starting up on the next generation Nerd Search. So that's at the moment I'm going through. I have to kind of reduce Next Generation to 8 episodes, which I want to see illustrated. So that's quite tricky. So I'm going to be working on that. So I'm nearly got to the end of my Next Generation. I shall be lost without it on my rewatch. As I say, I've got about 6 episodes to go. So that's an exciting new one. There's kind of a bit of a follow-up to Mr. Spock's Little Book of Mindfulness, but I'm not really allowed to say which way we're going after that. And we've got stuff coming up connected with... well, like I say, we've got the Beatles. We've got the Beatles Yellow Submarine. I think that's a nice direction to go in after Trek and Ghostbusters. So we've got a lot of fun projects coming up.
Very cool. Well, yeah, that TNG Nerd Search. I mean, you'll have a pre-order as soon as that comes available from me anyway. Because I've like I said, this book has been great fun. So. Very cool.
I just want to put a word for the artist John Ross. I mean, one thing I think he's done with the original series is he's managed to capture some of the glamour of the series. Often when people do Star Trek in comic form, they seem to want to make it kind of more grim or more dramatic. But you look at the original 60s series; it's very glamorous, very attractive characters, lovely costumes, lovely coloring, lovely styling. And I think he's managed to capture this in some of his illustrations in a way that not many people have, which is it's one of the other aspects of celebrating the original series. I think that's one of the things that the styling in the book that the artist has done has got back to the spirit of the original 60s show, which was a very glamorous show and very attractive in its whole design sense. It had a lovely color palette. If you just freeze the frame sometimes and look at the show, it's beautifully lit, in a way that I think some of the later shows aren't. And there's such a lot to celebrate there visually. So I think that's something else I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing flipping through. It's just striking the colors and the backgrounds and that kind of thing. So yeah, incredible amount of work has been put into this to give it that really distinctive look. So yeah, absolutely love it. Is there anywhere online that people should be following you if they want to kind of keep tabs on what's going on in this world?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I've got a website, glenndakin.com. You can contact me through there. You can see what other books I've done. I'm going to be putting out some of my autobiographical strips on there as well, as people like the cartoon style of Spock. So there's glenndakin.com. Also Hero Collector, which is kind of like the fantasy end of Eagle Moss. If people go on to just Google Hero Collector, you can see we're doing loads of interesting. We've got a new Voyager book out, for example. We're doing loads of interesting Trek-related stuff. We also do Doctor Who. We've got Ghostbusters, Ecto-1, Car. We're doing loads of fantasy projects on there, which I think people will love. We're doing clothes now. We're doing Doctor Who t-shirts. We're doing Mr. Spock. You can get t-shirt with nothing unreal exists on it, and live long and prosper, etc. With the cartoons. So I'd say go to Hero Collector, check out glenndakin.com. That would be great. Also, you can get all our stuff through Amazon, etc.
Excellent. Yeah, and we'll have links to those in the show notes as well. So cool. Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully giving some people some interesting gift ideas for Christmas and stuff too. So thank you so much.
That's been great to talk to you, and thank you for listening to my mad world of publishing.
I have a feeling you have a dream project of doing a nerd search for Doctor Who, and I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great fun. There would be so much to cover. Where would you start?
There's a lot.
I'd like to do a black and white one, from the original, from the 60s. Start off with the black and white book and see how many people bought it. They probably wouldn't, but
that'd be pretty cool for sure.
Yeah, that would be fun. But I'm not sure if we are allowed to do Doctor Who yet. But who knows? If the Nerd Search brand takes off, they might come clamoring to us and saying, we want to do the Daleks, we want to get in there, and that'd be great fun.
Yeah.
Feels like it'd be a good fit for sure. So
it would be because of the humor. I think because Star Trek is funny as well as dramatic. Star Trek has always been a very witty show. I think that's what attracts the fans. They like the humorous side of it as well as the dramatic side. And Doctor Who is a similar mixture of humor and eccentricity and drama. Which appeals to the nerd mindset, and I think it would be a good fit. Yeah,
definitely. Well, Bruce, where can people find you online if they want to follow what you're up to?
I am on Twitter at Admiral_Rex. I'm also on Instagram at AdmiralRex, no underscore. I'm also on Goodreads. I never mentioned that, but yeah, just look for me on Goodreads. I guess it's just Bruce Gibson. And then I'm also occasionally on the Star Wars Report podcast.
Excellent. You can find me on Twitter at Kertrats. That's KERTRATS, just Star Trek backwards. You can find me on youtube.com/Kertrats Productions. You can find the show on Twitter at Positively Trek. And join our discussion group on Facebook. Just search for Positively Trek. We're under the Positively Trek discussion group, and join up there, and we'd love to have you. Well, thank you all so much for listening this week, and as always, stay positive.